Don't want to interrupt, but if anybody's still looking for a seat, we've got some room upstairs, it looks like. So there's some room upstairs on the second balcony. And I can raffle off my seat right here. Free membership if you want to join up as a sponsor. Be happy to give you my seat right there in the corner there. Every event, I'll let you have that one. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit slowly. Somebody's caught in traffic. Hopefully we won't know who that is, and he'll make it here on time. But I'd like to welcome you to, oh good, terrific. Guess what I just heard? Everybody's here. That's what I love. I just have to share one. We love to do panels. We don't like to do fireside chats anymore because one fireside chat, we had somebody come down with SARS. And that made for a very lonely fireside chat. So it's good that we have a plan here, a good panel, and it is a terrific panel, and one that is really, I'm looking forward to it, and I couldn't believe out in the lobby, there is a range of people. Oh, I've got a taker, you're gonna, oh, damn. Please have a seat. So we have a range of people here tonight. Some old friends from the fuel cell industry, right out to some startup entrepreneurs, to financiers, to people in later stage companies. Everybody wants to know all about what's going on with crowdsourcing. So this is a pretty exciting panel. So back to the script, I'd like to welcome everybody to Vancouver's premier networking forum for technology entrepreneurs. We'd like especially to welcome those of you who are new to the VEF tonight. We would also like to give a special mention to Ernst & Young, who have helped bring this event to you tonight, and to Richard Mockett specifically, who is part of our operations committee. Richard Mockett is with the Assurance and Advisory Business Services, part of Ernst & Young. He helped pull this panel together for us. Richard is also part of our operations committee. Before we start, I'd like to take a minute to thank our many sponsors and supporters who make the VEF affordable and continue to help us host these events over the course of the year at a reasonable price. All of our sponsors and supporters are profiled on our website, right here, behind me here, and on the screens around us and at the registration desk. We're actively looking to engage new sponsors. If you're interested, please drop off your business card at our registration desk and talk to our manager, Chris McDonald, or you can corner Matt Carlson or myself on the sponsorship committee. We'd be happy to tell you all of the benefits that you can derive and the business opportunities that we can bring to you as being part of the VEF. One of our long-term sponsors who does a great job in serving our local technology community is UBC's University Industry Liaison Office, also known as the UILO. With 1,000 industry-partnered research projects annually and more than 250 licensees, and over 150 spin-off companies, UBC researchers interact extensively with local, national, and global industry partners and entrepreneurs. UBC's Industry Liaison Office facilitates these interactions and is focused on building an ongoing partnership that are appropriate to changing and being more open models of innovation. I hope that sounded correct. Let me try that again. Is focused on building ongoing partnerships that are appropriate to changing more open models of innovation. UBC is finding new ways to engage industry with academic research through initiatives such as the Campus as a Living Lab, is expanding the ways in which it can share knowledge and research discoveries through simplified licensing, mobile apps, and other non-proprietary routes, and is increasing its support to entrepreneurship through programs such as the Entrepreneurship at UBC program, which includes UILO offering its free startup services to new ventures founded by UBC students and recent alumni. If I can ask Lindsay Huxham, who is on our operations committee, to stand up and be recognized. Also David Woods from the Spark office, if they could stand and be recognized. If they are made it up into the top balcony or outside, please give a hand. Thank you very much. Jamie Hall is also from the UILO office, who's not with us tonight, but we also can welcome several UBC students that are here tonight as well. So welcome and thanks for joining us. Another long-term sponsor supporting the VEF is Dorsey & Whitney. Dorsey & Whitney is the only full-service U.S. law firm with an office in Vancouver. Jeff Peterson, one of Dorsey's Vancouver partners and former VEF chair and lifetime VEF member, acts effectively as a U.S. General Counsel for a host of Canadian technology companies. Jeff and Dorsey confine their practice to U.S. law, working closely with their clients, Canadian lawyers, to provide seamless cross-border advice. Jeff is also going to host our lightning pitches tonight. So if I can ask Jeff to stand up and join me here. And also if I can ask our lightning pitchers to stand up and take your seats on the other side. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Tim. The script amazingly gives me 3 minutes to introduce myself, but in the spirit of the lightning pitches, I think that's been done. So we'll get on with the show. I think that longtime members of the VEF know the rules. I certainly hope the lightning pitchers know the rules, and they get 100 seconds and no more than 100 seconds, and I'm going to rudely cut them off if they exceed their 100 seconds by a second. So our first lightning pitcher is Ron Smouter of ThinkCX. Ron, you're on. I think they control it in the back.
How about this?
Okay, 1, 2.
The call center industry is not very sexy. It's generally not forward-thinking, and some people view call centers as a necessary evil. So why would two guys embark on their third venture in this unsexy space? And why would an all-star lineup of advisors from companies such as Amazon, Google, and Microsoft be willing to jump on board? There's 3 reasons. It's a large market, it's a market ripe for disruption, and the last 2 previous startups that we founded in this space were successfully acquired. Hi, I'm Ron Smouter with ThinkCX. 45% of call centers are limping along with antiquated customer management systems. They'd love to switch, but it costs too much and it takes too long. So they're losing customers due to poor service. ThinkCX is a patent-pending software-as-a-service solution. It places a 21st century socially powered call center service application in the hands of call center managers and CSRs. ThinkCX analyzes social and local data about a customer in real time and allows the company or brand to provide exceptional service to its highest value customers. Best of all, it's a nearly instant add-on that deploys with any existing technology, so companies don't have to switch their platforms. The space that we play in was valued at $6.6 billion in 2012. It's growing 3 times faster than comparable software segments. Right now, as we emerge from our lean startup period, we have a sales pipeline of $10 million that we're starting to work on.
Just because your mic didn't work, we'll give you 20 seconds with that red flashing light.
Thanks. So even though the industry may not be too sexy, we think the opportunity is looking pretty darn good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no mic excuses for speaker number 2, who's Lee Johnson from FlightOffice. Lee, go for it.
Hey, thanks. Lee Johnson, FlightOffice. I'm a commercial pilot. I'm a former senior aviation manager. I'm a programmer and founder of FlightOffice. 20 years in the business, I can tell you aviation companies waste, and their stakeholders waste billions of dollars a year on inefficiencies, excessive labor costs, and it's getting worse and worse every year due to government regulations and customer demands. We built a solution to solve this problem. It's all in one. It connects all aspects of aviation process in real time. There's a web-based, SaaS-based platform. We have a flight data management box that sits in the aircraft. It's provided by a third party. It collects all sorts of data from the flight. We have an in-cockpit tablet that processes that data and synchronizes it. And of course, big data, we do analytics and reporting to provide all sorts of new solutions to aviation, like preventative maintenance, pilot behavior modeling, and things like that. We have real traction. We've got 11 customers in 4 continents, on 4 continents. Shell Petroleum is a customer of ours. Our growth is solid. We're looking to raise $1 million to get us to our next milestone, which is a market-ready platform, a market-ready iPad app, full integration with the flight data management system, and
Lee,
management team in place.
No mic dispensation for you. You're done.
All good. That was it.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee. Clayton Brown of KeyCafe is next.
I don't need it.
You're on.
KeyCafe is a neighborhood concierge service that lets you seamlessly manage your home. We are your neighborhood front desk. How it works. Attach your keys to our concierge keychain, which uses NFC technology. You can then check your keys into a nearby participating location, like the cafe across the street from your apartment. Once your keys are there, online, through your phone, you can begin to give access to others, to friends, family, visitors, Airbnb guests, your housekeeper, to enter your home, be on the beach, and remotely control access to your home. Take it one step further and let KeyCafe access your keys. Because we have your keys, we can provide you with seamless home services. One-click housekeeping, one-click dog walking. We can receive packages for you and deliver them to your entryway. We can deliver milk and juice into your fridge every Tuesday. KeyCafe has developed a technology that reduces the cost of administering access to many keys by 95% from enterprise systems, allowing us to access the consumer mass market. We will be the first company to bring many homes, city blocks, neighborhoods of homes, onto a common digital platform and provide seamless services to those homes, making your life a little bit easier.
Well timed. Thank you, Clayton. Next up is Jay Holtslander from TamTon.
This will be very brief, nowhere near as polished in practice as my fellow presenters. My name is Jay. I'm from a Vancouver-based technology training company called TamTon, and we're specialized in offline and online education. We're here this evening because we're interested in collaborating with possible partners. Possibilities might include large enterprise customers that are seeking to send people to further their skills training. Local software developers that might be experiencing a shortage in workers. We'd like to partner up with them to be able to send graduates to into jobs. And human resource managers that might also be struggling to find enough people that are skilled to fill the positions. And that's about it. Very short and simple and sweet.
Thank you, Jay. Our lightning pitchers will be around after we adjourn this evening. You're all encouraged, obviously, to have a word with them, and you're encouraged to put your name in to give a lightning pitch in the future. You can see what the routine is. It gives you an opportunity to stand in front of this audience and in 100 seconds say your piece. Tim?
Okay, guys, please have a seat. Enjoy the rest of the show. At this time, I would like to ask everybody to turn off their pagers. Anybody who's got one? And for those of you who don't know what a pager is, it kind of looks like an iPhone. So thank you very much, Jeff. That was a terrific group of lightning pitchers. And this is the first time in a while that we've actually had to cut some folks off. This is good. That's exciting. Kind of makes me wish I could have done it. So I'd like to have Richard Mockett come up and join us here. First, I'd like to introduce Richard. He is with Ernst & Young. He has been with them for 12 years, providing accounting and audit and advisory services for a range of clients with technology focus. He has worked with some of the largest technology companies, including Hewlett-Packard, Amazon.com, Oracle, and closer to home, Crystal Decisions, as well as many startup and emerging technology companies. So he started his finance career in investor relations with a Vancouver-based wireless software company, InfoWave. So Richard has been head coach of the Dunbar boys soccer team for the past 4 years and recently joined the operations committee of the Vancouver Enterprise Forum. So Richard, please, I'd like to invite you up and take over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim, and good evening, everyone. I'm very excited because we're starting 3 minutes ahead of schedule, and having met the panelists, we're going to be really short of time because I've got so much to say, so I'm going to sort of move swiftly on. So, really excited about today because I've spent a couple of minutes with the panelists, and they've got some fantastic, innovative ideas, and they've managed to commercialize these ideas, and I think you're going to get a lot of value out of the discussions we're having this evening. One of the things we agreed at the outset, though, was we should provide some sort of general basic concepts about what crowdfunding is and what it isn't. So we're all working towards got a common understanding, because I think that will enrich the discussions. So it's PowerPoint, but it's only 2 slides, so I hope you forgive me. Okay. So the definition of crowdfunding. So it's it's the raising of funds from, usually via the internet, from third parties, and it's usually a small contributions. It's a pretty diverse definition, and there's a reason for that, and that's because it's evolving, it's very flexible, and it's very dynamic. So contributions can be in the region of a couple of dollars, or they can be in thousands of dollars. The total capital raised can be a couple of $1,000s. It can be in the millions. One of the high-profile companies is Pebblewatch, that raised about 10 million in a space of 30 days. So it's very flexible, and there's a lot of different models, but we've broken it down into 4 basic models. The first is the gift donation, so that's mainly relevant for charities. So the contributor gives something and they don't get anything tangible in return. The second model is on the reward. So the contributor makes a contribution, it gets something tangible in return. So it may be a branded product of a company, or it may even be the product of the company. So game developers use this to pre-sell their games. Debt is quite straightforward. You loan money and you expect to get the money back under return. And equity, again, you contribute money, and that's in exchange for ownership investment. And so we'll cover probably all 3 of the 4 models. We probably won't spend too much on the debt. So there are 2 slides, and they're very short slides. So this is the last slide. So why crowdfund? There's two big primary reasons for this. The first is financial. So you want to raise some capital. I've already talked about sort of one company that raised a significant amount of capital. There's tons of data out there. Mass Solutions said that the total capital that's expected to be generated this year in 2013 is about 2.8 billion. So it's a huge market, and everyone thinks it's going to increase exponentially. And in the other sort of interesting angle is kind of on the non-financial side. And I know one of our panelists will talk about how they benefited from some of the non-financial benefits. But for example, you can get sort of good real-time feedback from your customers doing this. You can get some good market data. So just to summarize on this, the best kind of summary when I was researching this about crowdfunding was on the National Crowdfunding Association of Canada's website, and they gave an example of Dragon's Den, and the participants said, what's the biggest challenges to running a business as an entrepreneur, and the combined responses, the top 2 combined responses, 72% said cash flow and marketing your products and services. So crowdfunding is pretty exciting because it enables you to address those 2 big challenges. So that's enough for me. My objective is to let these 5 speak as much as possible. I have said that I will have to cut them off if they do talk too much, but I'm sure we'll have a lot of interaction and very, very insightful comments. So I'd like to invite the panelists to take the seats, please. And give them a big round of applause as they take their seats. So how we're going to kick the panel discussion off was, I'm not going to introduce, I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. And as they introduce themselves, they're going to take it in turns to describe how they work in crowdfunding, because they're all very different, and then talk about how their crowdfunding business works. And Jay, Giraud, at the end, we'll stop before we get to you, because I want to say a bit more about your role, Jay. So maybe Daryl, do you want to start off?
Sure. Thanks, Richard. So I'm Daryl Hatton. I'm founder and CEO of Fundraiser. Fundraiser is the fastest, easiest, and most effective way to raise money online for personal, nonprofit, political, or entrepreneurial type projects. So our claim to fame in what we do is that we help take these campaigns, which are really marketing campaigns, and distribute them very, very well through social media like Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, that kind of thing. How it works is that somebody comes to our site and they'll create a fundraising campaign. The campaign will describe what they're raising money for. They'll have the ability to have a photo there, maybe a video that explains what it's all about. And it's obviously a place for someone to make a contribution to the campaign in some form. We record all the people that are involved, the comments that they have, and we allow those people to share this campaign out to their friends in social media to help spread the word about what's going on. Now, I got this started because I used to coach a lacrosse team, and this is back kind of in 2008 timeframe when we figured this out. I tried to get all the players out to the practices by sending out email, and I was getting very poor response. But Facebook was starting out. Everyone was on Facebook on the team, so I started a Facebook group, invited them all, and they all showed up for practice. And I went, we're going to change the way we communicate. I wonder if I could get my fees out of them like I got them out to practice. And so our first version of Fundraiser was designed to go out there and collect fees and donations. We proceeded along a little way and launched that in TechCrunch down in September of 2009. Operated it for a while and then got involved with PayPal, who said there's actually this really cool opportunity over here for personal crowdfunding and for using crowdfunding technology for nonprofits. So we co-developed Fundraiser with them, the next version of Fundraiser, and went to market with that in July of 2010. And since then, we've become partners with Facebook for our launch on Timeline, and with Twitter and with Google, and it's all been going pretty well so far. We've, just to kind of a point on pretty well, we've helped our customers raise about $26 million so far. We do about $2 million a month. We have customers in 18 countries around the world.
Yeah, Mike.
Okay, so I'd just like to give you a little bit of background. So I started off as many of you as an entrepreneur. I built a company, sold it, and for the last 30 years have been an angel investor, investing in startups, and I work with entrepreneurs. Presently, I do that through Simon Fraser University. I run 2 large angel networks. One is local Vancouver, and one is the entire Pacific Northwest. I also have 3 angel funds which invest in startups. So my passion is entrepreneurs and helping entrepreneurs raise capital. Now, I always get frustrated, and I'll give you an example. Jay, at the end, been working with Jay on some of his projects. Last summer, I got a phone call from someone who works for BC Ferries Corporation. They said, I heard about this exciting company that Jay is developing, and I'd like to put $25,000 into it. And I said, well, do you meet one of the securities exemptions that entitles you to do that? And I had to explain to him what an exemption was and how the investing business works because of our securities environment. And bottom line was that I had to say, sorry, Jay cannot take your money because you're not qualified and you don't meet one of these securities exemptions. So I have the privilege of working with accredited investors who are eligible under these exemptions to invest in companies. And angels, by definition, are high net worth individuals. The legal term is you have to have a net worth of over $1 million or an annual income of $200,000. And if you meet that requirement, no problem, you can invest. The only other option for entrepreneurs is family, friends, and relatives or business associates. or they can also raise a minimum of $150,000 from any particular investor. So this has been a big issue because the population that is entitled to invest is very small. It's less than 1%. On the other hand, there are many, many people, the other 99%, even the next 10%, if you go down from the top, that could invest, like the fellow that called me from BC Ferries. So this is what gave rise to crowdfunding in the US with the Jobs Act that Obama came out with. What's frustrating for me is that here in British Columbia, unknown to most people, we have had legalized crowdfunding for at least a decade. And it's the only place in North America where you can do this. You can't do this in Ontario. You can do it sort of in Alberta and New Brunswick and a few other places. But BC lets you raise money from the crowd. No restrictions, no limits. Yet it's not being used. And I'll just pose the question why, and maybe we can revisit that later, because it's there today and everyone in British Columbia can do it, and most British Columbians don't know about it.
Thanks, Mike. We'll come back to that. Dave?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Geertz, founder of SoKap, which stands for Social Capital. We basically are a crowdfunding microfinance platform, be it, call it what you will. We're the first site that allows people to buy in and make a financial return without the sale of securities and without the business owner taking on debt. We do this by creating a method of simple social enterprise by taking a consumer goods company, for example. Let's use a beer company as an example. They have a need for capital, and our mapping and algorithm system basically puts a value on every single city in Canada for the future earnings of that product once it comes out. And we then connect that entrepreneur with up to 2,000 to 3,000 nonprofits who will buy into the future earnings out of the city that they choose to buy, and then become, in addition to the funder, they also become the street level marketing voice for that brand, and turn around and say, hey, if you drink this beer, our nonprofit makes a dividend. And so we both accept the funds from the nonprofits that then fund the entrepreneur, but the site also then ties to distribution, whether it's online or offline, and pays out the appropriate royalties. And that's all I got.
I'm up?
Yeah, thanks, Jay.
Hi, folks. My name is Jay Parmar. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Picatic, and we're a little bit different. We're crowdfunding for events, so we're a little bit specific, and we narrow it down. And how it works is like this. When event organizers, and I'm just going to use Kristen, when Kristen comes to our platform and she wants to put on an event, she comes up and signs up, and then once she signs up, she then entices her ticket buyers to come purchase for her event at a discounted rate. If it hits that discounted rate, so it's crowdfunding, so we try to entice them with that value add. And once it hits that, it continues to sell at full price until it sells out. However, on the flip side, I'm going to use a real-life scenario here. There's a guy named Dave and Lance Armstrong. This was Lance, the real Lance Armstrong, before the Oprah interview. They were using our platform to put on an event. Unfortunately for them, they didn't even come close to hitting their funding mark. Which was great for them is that, and great for the buyers, that if anyone who had bought for that event, they get their money back in full without any financial loss. Great for Dave, the event organizer, because he saves himself what would have been a great financial loss. I tell people who aren't in this space, 1,000 unsold tickets at $75 is a long tail loss of $150K. Add a couple zeros, it can add up. And for Lance, unfortunately, I mean, this didn't really help his reputation management, but it saved his reputation management as well as all the sponsors that came on with that. We're kind of new to the space. We launched September 6 or 7 months ago. Since then, we're the market leaders in the world. We deal with the US and American currencies, and we are working with PayPal right now, and we shall be working up to the world markets with some exciting things happening in the next few weeks. So keep your ears to the ground, folks.
Okay, thank you very much. And so, Jay, Jay Giraud, you're slightly different because you've used crowdfunding to move your company forward. So, introduce yourself, please, and explain sort of why you used crowdfunding and what was the experience like for you and what you got out of it.
Okay, great. You can hear me okay on this? Yeah. So my name is Giraud. I'm the founder and CEO of Mojio, and we're reinventing driving around your smartphone. So we have a cellular device that connects to any car on the road and allows you to download apps for your phone that streams data from your car. So you can now finally be internet connected with your car, and we have an open platform so developers can write apps for your car and connect you to your house, to your family, to your friends, to your engine, to your service garage, you name it. So we decided to launch an Indiegogo campaign. So there's discussion, Mike Volker was referring specifically to crowdfunding when it comes to selling equity in your business, and it's absolutely true that in BC you can use crowdfunding as a mechanism for attracting investors and selling equity to raise investor equity for a startup. One of the other forms, at least, of crowdfunding is, there's some nuances here, but it's pre-selling your product, basically. And probably a lot of you have heard of the Pebble watch, easily the most successful crowdfunding campaign in history. They pre-sold 69,000 watches in a month. Maybe.
I'm one of those guys.
You got one right there?
Yeah.
Where you going?
Yeah,
nice.
right
And they're finally shipping them.
Yeah.
I hear they're great, actually. And yeah, $10 million, right? So now, obviously, the majority, if not all of that money, goes towards paying for the watches, the cost of goods of the watch. So it's not like they can run the entire business off that money, and that's something you really want to remember if you're thinking about using crowdfunding. But the two big platforms are Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And for reasons, if you like, I'll get into it, we chose Indiegogo. We chose Indiegogo, we chose a platform for crowdfunding because we knew that we were creating a new product category. An internet device for your car, probably a new idea for just about everyone in this room. So in a new product category, there's a lack of consumer awareness. We needed to generate product appeal, test the level of consumer awareness, test the appeal for our brand, create a group of potential evangelists that we can run surveys with and ask them if they like our colors and really actually scientifically test our new startup. Also, we hope to raise some money on that, which we raised some money on that, so that was good. What we were underwhelmed by the number of consumers that backed our early product, and we've spent a lot of time analyzing why. Consumer awareness is certainly one. We were tremendously overwhelmed with a number of corporations who contacted us who want to buy our product. Found that, connecting a vehicle to the internet, that's called fleet telematics. Everybody knows about fleet telematics. It's been happening for 15 years with FedEx and you name it. Extremely saturated business and ripe for disruption. So, though people might wonder, should you start a startup and make it so publicly known and open up your kimono and share so much about your business months before you deliver? Sounds pretty risky, and your competitors are going to sniff you and find out about all your nuances. You never know what happens when you really put yourself out there, and I'd say that overall it's absolutely catapulted our B2B sales opportunities by years of time saving. So it's been good overall.
And Jay, you've been through this experience, and your main focus was on kind of the non-financial benefits of crowdfunding. Having been through that, would you reconsider trying to raise more money, or were you happy with sort of the outcomes?
So we definitely didn't bank on raising enough money to run our business off Indiegogo. And so at the same time, we were doing a friends and family round, and that's given us a substantial runway to carry on the business and run through all these great B2B leads that we uncovered from the process. I would say if you're going to do crowdfunding, don't do it thinking it's going to take you only 8 months to ship your Pebble watch, because it was like 14 or something. Mm-hmm. Do it when you absolutely know you're 2 months away from shipping. When your story, your product, your brand, your messaging, your PR, you've already built evangelists, you're probably way down the path of beta testing, and you know it's going to work flawlessly, and you're 60 days away from launching, then do it, or maybe 90 at the most. So to answer your question, yeah, we are planning on doing it again. But definitely when we have done a lot of other things and are much closer to a consumer launch, and the consumer is much closer to understanding what it is that we're doing.
Okay, great. So Jay's, I think, would categorize your experience as success. What I'm interested in hearing from the other panelists, what companies have they seen that have been successful in using crowdfunding, and what are the things that we can learn from those experiences? And I'll hand it over to the panel, whoever wants to answer the question, David.
I can go with our platform on one that speaks similar to having some traction first. but using our platform to define their market. We worked with a beer company out of Kelowna that was wanting to grow, and they were having a really hard time in the city of Surrey and Nanaimo. And so what we did was we used our licensing platform to determine an appropriate amount of money, and then what we did is we marketed that beer company to the right groups who bought in, and then we asked the beer company to do no marketing whatsoever over 90 days and allow the crowd who bought the license to then market that beer company for them, and sales went up 230% over 90 days for the beer company, and they've got a well-established market in those territories now. So,
anyone else want to add some stories?
I might just add to that if you're a startup and you're trying to build a business, I mean, I'm not going to try to count how many different ways there are to raise money, but there's not very many, right? Maybe less than that, really, legitimate ways to actually raise money. And I'd say maybe even if you're not a consumer product, crowdfunding should be an absolute way to raise money in your quiver. And I think even if you're going to do it more than once over years, different products, product iterations, just engaging with the audience. In the world of new marketing, you can't afford to not authentically develop relationships with your market, even before they become customers. And it's just a great way to connect with people.
Daryl, have you got any
do you want success stories or kind of what works, what doesn't work?
Either. Yeah.
Well, so one of the biggest myths about crowdfunding is that when you launch your crowdfunding campaign, the heavens open up and money starts falling down on you from this great untapped resource of money in the sky called the internet. What most people don't understand is it's really a marketing system. You're taking your cause, your project, your entrepreneurial efforts, whatever that is, and you're trying to tell the story about it. So it really becomes about storytelling about your product, about getting people engaged with that, and so that they're more passionate about it. It's not an intellectual exercise as much for most crowdfunding to be successful as it is an emotional exercise. So one of the key things that most people fail on when they're starting crowdfunding is, first off, they forget to ask. They tell the story, and then they say, there it is, instead of saying, please give me money. Because money's an icky topic. It's just one of the things we have a hard time asking for. The other thing that they fail to do is they have to ask the people that are around them to support them. Crowdfunding works on the idea that you're going to get people interested who are going to become your evangelists, your advocates for the product. They want to get involved with it enough that they'll tell people about it. And if your close people around you will not buy into your crowdfunding campaign and give you money, your next level for sure won't, because you're missing something called social proof. How do we vet or know that these things are good campaigns to run? Is whether or not we've seen a friend that's involved. So the most likely friend that would be involved is those people that are really close to the campaign at the beginning, voting with their dollars to say this is a good thing to do. And when we see that proof, then crowdfunding campaigns can work for other people, and they start reaching out from the first degree of separation to the second degree, and hopefully at some point go viral and really build market awareness for your campaign and just a general flow of revenue for that. So the big thing is that they have to do that. The second place where I think most campaigns fail to remember is that it's not free money. Every time you ask for money, it has a cost. And even if it's a donation to your campaign, there's some sort of obligation that you might feel as the person getting it to deliver the project in whatever form it is. If it's a nonprofit, do the work of the nonprofit. If it's a personal campaign, get someone to the hospital the way they're talking about and get treated for the disease they're raising money for. So it becomes even more important when you get down to perks. If you have a crowdfunding campaign that has a product that you are offering to someone for pre-sale, you better darn well make sure that you can build it for the amount of money that you've been asking for and can deliver that product. Because that's the biggest myth, is that I got this money, now I'll just go do my business and get it ready to go. But you have a deliverable now. And that's a key piece that a lot of first-timers seem to forget.
I'd like to echo that. There's a few people that come, many people that come to our platform and think that if they put on their event on our platform, it's automatically going to sell. Shitty events are shitty events. There's nothing we can do with that, What is interesting and what's exciting about it is that one thing that we learned that we didn't know is that proof. events are kind of a social buy, and that social proofing is really important. And what we realize is nobody goes to their favorite concert by themselves. They're always like, hey, dude, I got my ticket, you want to come? And when you've actually bought, it's like, okay, you've voted with that dollars. But then there's this thing called the calendar, right? Things start competing with your calendar. So the longer it takes you to buy, the less likely you're going to come to an event. However, if somebody, an extreme user, an early adopter comes on, they have a 1 in 20 influence versus one person that doesn't have much influence might have a 1 in 1, if anything, and the later they come. So what happens is we found, and we've done studies, some of our events have sold out 300 times faster. And what we did is we A/B tested this. An event that happened the year before, it was a mobile social conference, and a mobile social conference that happened, the exact same one. We said, listen, we want to crowdfund our event and do X amount of tickets. Long and short of it, it sold out 300 times faster. Why? Well, a few things. One is that we had social proofing, right? Other people were buying. Second one is we created urgency, right? Time was running out. So all of a sudden, there's people like, shit, I got to get this, right? And lastly is you got somebody saying, hey, you know what? I got a deal here, and they become advocacy. So now with this white label of, we all do the social graphing and we put it all on the graphs and it's on Facebook, but everyone's doing that. But if you can go up to somebody who's in your peer group, you can say, yeah, I advocate for this, plus on top of it, you can get 20% off or 50% off this ticket, and also there's a perk. It's huge, and those are some of the things about the psychology of what crowdfunding does and the power of the people that we're learning and we're capitalizing on, and we're kind of putting fuel on the fire on. So it's kind of neat that a lot of things that you're saying, they just resonate with me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would add another thing, that as a platform owner, in our early days, we would allow companies on without actually doing our own internal focus group tests of the actual consumer good. And one of our biggest mistakes was allowing a tea company that was harvested out of the forest, so it's foraged off the forest floor. And we just took our word for it, and that this was a good product. And then it actually started selling licenses, and people started promoting this product. And 99% of all the comments were, "This tea tastes like dirt," and we were the ones that took the hit. And not the entrepreneur. So we started as a platform doing our own internal focus group before we even allow someone on. We try and mitigate some of the social risk around that. Yeah.
Well, that's I'm really glad you mentioned that, Dave, because that's the next topic I was going to ask about. Because you guys have got a lot of experience in helping shape good companies raise money and promote themselves. How much advice do you give to companies using your websites, or are you more of a passive platform that people come to your website and you say, go and do your own thing? Or how much do you get involved with the companies or the people that visit your site?
Yeah, I would say on average, an average company dealing with us, it's about a 2 to 3 day process where we actually interview them. We learn about the cost of goods sold. We want to know if they are, in fact, the manufacturer of the product. We don't allow any OEM offshore stuff. It has to be artisanal. People have to be the maker. And then we do some research on who the best group is to get involved, and we do the outreach through our networks, which is primarily accounting firms and credit unions. And, yeah.
For us, we try to be as minimal viable product as possible. So, we want to be as low touch and barrierless and frictionless, and we don't really want to talk to people. We want it to be sort of self-incumbent. So we test. We want to, and there's a few things. One, there's that ideology and that conceptual aspect. Do they understand what they're getting into? There's that education piece. So right now there is not much we do, but we're trying to learn exactly how much we actually have to do without doing too much, because we only have X amount of resources. You do the videos, you do all those kind of things, the toll-free numbers, but it's really, really touch-heavy, and for us, we want to stay away from that as much as we possibly can.
And how do you avoid sort of the bad experience that Dave talked about, then, Jay, if that's your philosophy?
What we found, so what ends up happening is we call them adventurepreneurs. So this is, and it's really adventurepreneurs. This is what we call them. Is because what ends up happening is that they're entrepreneurs at heart, and if they lose money, they lose money, and it sucks, right? So what we found is that once they start taking that risk away, what they started doing is they started getting sort of like creative and sort of throwing spaghetti at the wall. So our numbers were, we were sitting around a 53% success rate, right? And then it started going down. We're like, holy macros, what are we doing wrong? What's happening? Well, we found out that they get a little bit more adventurous, and they started like, hey, well, let's try this and see what works. So the answer to the question is we're still learning. I mean, it's just as much as it's people are trying to figure out exactly what this beast of crowdfunding is and the different silos and what's going on. For us, we're trying to find out exactly how the market plays and how it engages. So the only answer I have is we don't know. We just do big data, multivariance testing, and just try and figure it out as day comes in, day goes out.
And Daryl,
we have our goal with our platform is to be incredibly light touch around the thing. The idea is that someone could show up at the site, sign up, have their campaign going in a few minutes. But who's signing up? If a lot of our campaigns are personal campaigns, it's someone who may not be able to spell marketing. And tried to be said charitably, they really don't understand the concept. So one of the things that we do is we try and have automated coaching as well as the testing and smoothing the system as much as possible. So someone will start their campaign, and then we'll try and hit them with best practices along the way, just in time. So, hey, have you sent an update to your supporters? You've been running a couple of days. Tell them what's happened since you got going. Tell them about that. Or add a video to get more people to contribute to your campaign. So there's a lot of work that we've gone into that coaching system. But it's interesting that some of the customers require a lot more help there. And we're trying to balance the human touch aspect of it to the automated touch. Because we had a coaching system where we have a coach that would phone someone and say, if you just tell us a little bit more about what you're doing here, we've seen campaigns like this become very successful. And we had some limited success with it, but boy, it's expensive. So we're testing and trying to validate how we can help people learn how to market their cause very effectively.
And what we found through that same experience is that nobody reads. And really, you need the information when you need the information. So there's a balance between information and nurturing. So when we know that they've gone through one step, we'll give them a little bit more information because, okay, now I'm at that spot, right? If I have information that is 5 steps away, it's too much information, right? So there's that balance between nurture, call to action, and what kind of reward or what kind of action we want them to create. It's exciting, So we test, and test. So same thing?
Yeah, totally. You have to give it in little bites. Yeah. That nobody reads is amazingly true. It's sadly true.
And I'm the worst. Like, I don't read, So
big buttons.
Yeah.
Little videos. It's one thing at a time. Do this. They do it, then do that. So.
Awesome.
You have children, right? Same stuff.
Well, one of the interesting things I was reading, reading a bunch of newsletters and things, is that they were comparing going through the traditional way of raising finance, which is maybe presenting to an angel investor or a VC in person. So that's a very you're there in front of them, compared to just posting a product or a company name on a website. And the concept was, well, there's a lot less skin in the game, and they lose that process of convincing others, which was a very important process of raising money. Do you see that as a sort of negative downside to crowdfunding or not?
You mean being in front of the investor if you're trying to raise equity versus trying to find other means to pre-sell your product and raise capital?
Well, it's more so you're selling something via the internet, so it's more of a faceless medium of promoting your company compared to an in-person way of promoting your company. So is there the same accountability behind crowdfunding a company via a platform like that?
Well, they're different audiences. So the investor audience, if you're in front of a group of angels or a venture capital firm or whatever, versus the consumer. But I think the accountability is far higher when even if it's faceless and you're interfacing with your market, because you only get one chance to impress the market. And if you get it wrong, well, they're just not going to come back. The consumers are incredibly fickle, for one. For two, they're your customer, or at least you hope them to be. and you're selling a lot more than your product. I mean, if someone goes into a store and buys that product, that's pretty faceless too, but they've already got some level of relationship with your brand, some goodwill that you've established over the years. Whereas if you're asking them to back your project, you're asking them to take a considerable amount of risk. I mean, sure, it's commensurate to the dollar that they're putting in. So if you pre-sell a product for $100 that you're going to ship in 8 months, you're asking them to back something that's not even done yet, that technically you don't really know is going to work, or you don't really know exactly if you're going to be shipping on time. Buying something sight unseen is always glitzier than the real thing. I mean, at the end of the day, you're just wearing a watch. I backed the competitor to Pebble. I backed the Metal watch, and I just got it.
Have you got it? Have you got it?
I got it within like a month. But it's not as glitzy as the Pebble watch. But at the end of the day, it's still just a watch. I mean, yeah, I play with it a lot, but what I discovered in the video of the Pebble watch or the Metal watch, I thought, wow, I can read my text messages right here. That's so convenient. I'm not going to pull my phone out of my pocket every 3 minutes. You know what it actually does? Socially, people think I'm really rude. They think I'm checking the time all the time. I wouldn't have thought that. Twitter, email, Facebook, messages. I'm checking my watch like crazy, or I'm learning not to now. Which, okay, it's not benefiting me anymore, but it's still vibrating on my wrist. So it's still distracting me from the person I'm sitting in front of. So it's really easy to, it's not really easy, but it's easy. It is easy to wow people on the internet with really well-prepared videos, great PR, great messaging, great marketing. And if you want to have a good crowdfunding campaign, you better put a ton of time and money into making that just perfect. But then it's got to live up to those expectations, and you've got to stay in touch with them, and you've got to send those newsletters, and you've got another group of stakeholders that matters so much. And when we went silent on our crowd for 3-4 weeks, we got a bunch of hate mail like that, because they thought we were going to abandon them and conspiracy theories, and we're just out to rob their money, and it happens. So they're your customers, and they matter more than anybody else, even if you haven't shipped your product yet.
I just want to add to that. I think it's important to know that the numbers that are coming out are a little bit skewed. There is signs that what is known as donor fatigue is starting to set in unless your project truly is a charitable project. So for a site like Daryl's, who has a dedicated site for raising charitable contributions, for example, that is way, way, way up. And the other really big area, which isn't really present here at the table, is the micro debt crowdfunding portion, which represents greater than 50% of all the money contributed last year. And it's expected to go north of 1.6 billion in this year. And so, there are cracks starting to occur. And I think, when your comment is, are people fickle and people getting... Yeah, I think they're starting to say, if I'm going to give you money, you gotta give me a better reason to give it to you now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we start talking about different financing options. Mike, do you want to talk about maybe why crowdfunding in BC from an equity base hasn't taken off as maybe as it might have done?
Yeah, and by the way, I should just mention that equity and debt are in the same category. The same rules and regulations apply, whether it's debt instruments or equity. So here's the situation. If you're raising money from angel investors, that's great. And many of you I see in the room have come to one of our angel meetings. Now, the problem comes in if you want to sell to someone who does not meet that particular accredited standard. But here in British Columbia, was there a question? Here in British Columbia, and as I was saying earlier, it's the only place in North America where this is possible. You can do what's called an offering memorandum, which is kind of like a business plan with some additional stuff in it. And if you have that offering memorandum, then you can sell shares any amount, no limitation, to anyone in British Columbia. And most people don't know that. That is crowdfunding. That is what they want to do in the US but haven't done it yet. That's what is being done in some provinces in Canada, but it's not there yet. But it is in BC, and it's been here for 10 years. And so I met last week, in fact, Daryl was there, and Bill Tam from the TIA was there, and we met with people from the BC Securities Commission. And their question to us was, why? Why aren't entrepreneurs raising money using this methodology? We want to help entrepreneurs access capital, because there are so many more people out there that are willing to take a risk, invest in a startup with the promise of high return, but they can't. They're not legally allowed to invest unless you give them an offering memorandum. So the answers that came back were really two. One was that it was one was just education. Most entrepreneurs just simply don't know about it, and somewhere we as a community haven't done a good job of getting that message out. So I'm getting that message out this evening, I hope. So what's involved in doing that? Well, first of all, the only thing that is a bit tedious is writing it. You can write it. You just fill in a form, and it's available on the Securities Commission's website. Where the bit of expense comes in is, and this is a bit crazy, but you have to produce audited statements, even if you're a startup and have no statements or financial history. So that means you have to run out and spend a few $1,000s on getting audited statements. And you might spend a few $1,000s on legal expenses, but you don't need to. But the bottom line is it's not that expensive. You can get away with about $5,000 maximum to do this. And then it opens the door to you, and you can sell to anyone, anywhere in British Columbia, no restrictions, no problems. It also serves the purpose of giving you a pretty decent kind of business plan. Angel investors certainly want to see some level of planning and documentation. So it also satisfies that requirement. The other thing that the regulators identified was that there's this perception that if you use an offering memorandum, you are no longer a private company. In fact, you're no longer a so-called private issuer. You're still a private company as far as Revenue Canada is concerned, but as far as regulators in the securities industry are concerned, you're not a private issuer. That does not mean you're a public issuer. It just means you're not private. And a lot of entrepreneurs think, oh, now I have to file reports. I have to disclose my quarterly results and file them on CEDAR. Not true. You don't have to do that. The only thing you have to do once you use an offering memorandum, and it's also true if you have more than 50 investors, once you go over that, then it means that every time you raise money, you have to simply file a little report with the regulator that says, I raised $1 million from 10 people. And that's it. And it's not publicly disclosed who those people are. So it's really not that bad. And I think that entrepreneurs should take advantage of that. I think it also instills a certain discipline and improves the quality of the offering. So it's there. And the next step, of course, is to use websites to make this information available. Now, I have 2 angel funds, and I raise money using an offering memorandum in one of them, and I use money. I raise money in the other one using a prospectus, which is a public offering. And those are through websites. So you can go to my website, you can read about what we do, and if you want an offering memorandum, I can give you that and you can invest. In the case of the public company, you don't even need that. You can just call your stockbroker and buy the shares. It's easy. And
how about we compare that with what's going on in the U.S. right now?
Yeah.
Is that so?
Yeah, good question. Good point.
Do you want me to run it?
Yeah, run with it.
So the Jobs Act, the big things, there were 2 main provisions of the Jobs Act that were interesting to entrepreneurs. The first provision, what's called Title II, was getting rid of the rule that said you cannot advertise your deal to accredited investors in the United States. So they're having to add this rule in to give you an exemption so you can talk about your deal to anyone.
And we've never had that.
We've never had that. We don't have that problem. We don't have to have a solution for that problem. Second thing that they're doing is they're trying to limit the amount of money that can be raised in general to $1 million over a 12-month period. Maximum investment from an unaccredited investor, someone who doesn't meet the 1% kind of income test, is $10,000. So their rules there are trying to make it easy for them to manage the risk of small investors by keeping a cap on the amount that the user is allowed to invest or the investor is allowed to put in. There's some complications to that, but that's pretty much the basic thing that's going on that they're trying to get going. In their attempts to make this happen, they are making it incredibly complicated for the portals and the broker-dealers to be involved. First off, there you have to have a broker-dealer involved in your deal to officially sell the deal. So immediately you have to have a commission paid to someone on the money you're raising. Second thing that happens is the broker-dealer has tremendous responsibilities around knowing the product, and knowing the customer. So they have to validate that the investors, who they say they are on this, they have to validate criminal records checks on all the members of the company. They have essentially a set of documentation that looks like a mini IPO now. And we're very involved with this, and I predict it's not going to do very well. Now, the interesting component of this that gets even worse, if you're listed and restricted to $10,000 from an investor under their plan, and unaccredited investors, how many investors do you need to get to reach your $1 million raise at an average of $2,000? It's a tremendous number of people that you have to have the invest in my company conversation with on the website or otherwise. And there's some significant concerns that the cost of managing that cap table and the expectations of the investors there might outweigh the value of the amount of money that you're raising in those cases.
Yeah. So in Alberta and New Brunswick, they're thinking along similar lines, but they want to limit it to $2,000. Cool. So think of all the investors you've got to bring in if you're raising $500,000, and compare that to the cost of not doing that and getting an audited financial statement. So you spend a couple $1,000s to get audited financial statements, and you don't have that headache. Now you can have 50 or 100 investors, and you hit your $500,000 or $1 million fundraise objective.
It begs the question whether or not equity crowdfunding is going to be successful. And especially for small startups, there might be other options like a rewards model or a perks model that can help prove market share at the same time, market acceptance at the same time as funding the initial stage of the project.
Now, the big fear with equity-based crowdfunding is failure and risk. And the regulators are trying to prevent fraud. And in fact, there's very little of that. It's business failures. We know that most of our companies fail. You know, I've been in angel investing for way too long, and 80% of the companies fail. A very small percent produce those big returns. So it's kind of a numbers game. So I personally worry that if we open the doors and let people just invest in all kinds of stuff through some website, everybody's going to lose their shirt. Unless you invest in 15 or 20 deals equally, you know, reports and studies show that you're going to lose your money. Let me give you a little statistic. The encouraging thing about angel investing, and I certainly advocate and encourage angel investing, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. If the way to make money at angel investing is to invest in a lot of deals. If you invest in 3 or 4 companies, it's very, very risky. You've got to be in 15 or 20. And then if you're in 15 or 20, studies have shown you can get better than a 20% IRR overall. And that's great. The National Angel Capital Organization in Canada is promoting angel investing as a new asset class and a way for the general public to get in and make better than stock market types of returns. So I think that's all great, but you've got to invest in a large number of deals. Plus, you've got to do a lot of due diligence on those deals, and then post-investment, angels and others have to do the hand-holding, the follow-up, the governance, and the stewardship, and all of those other things that go into building successful businesses. So very, very, very risky, but on the other hand, very rewarding if done correctly.
Dave, did you want to add something?
Yeah, that's interesting, Mike. I think now that I know, I didn't know this about the OM and the ability to raise money. I think that it might be really, really suitable for someone who wants to start a restaurant or start a bakery or run a shoe shop, you know. But I think the democratization of finance, where you're dealing with a lot of people in a lot of these startups require more than one round of financing, and I think a lot of people, you know, if you walk up to me right now with an offering memorandum, there's probably lots of really smart people here, and somebody said to me, "Hey, here's an OM, Dave. Would you like to buy into my self-assembling molecular RAM, you know, graphene supercapacitor?" I'm in, count me in. Right, so I just don't think that the democratized, quote, unwashed masses like me are going to be able to understand what the hell you're talking about. And so I still think there's a need for the angels to do that due diligence and provide a bigger check and be able to take the risk. And I think that's probably why it's still trying to find the right fit for crowdfunding equity, I guess what I'm trying to say.
I predict, and I'm seeing it now, a new trend is towards angel funds. We've got quite a few of them here in town. These are small funds, a few $100,000 to a few $1 million, and it's where people pool their capital to get the numbers. Because if you just invest in a few deals, it's risky, but if you invest in a lot, it may work. So the idea is to pool your money in the one fund that I'm involved with. We've got over 150 investors, and we've got 60 companies that we've invested in. And I think we have a good shot at getting better than those 20% returns. So there are ways that you can do this. But you're absolutely right, because if you just let the general public go to a website and make a decision based on the hype and the promotion, I think that's pretty risky. And that's what everybody's worried about. And that's why we're going to see some rough waters ahead.
Well, that's also, a safety in numbers approach. I mean, it doesn't matter how sophisticated or expert you are, it's a double full-time job researching 15 to 20 companies. Researching, studying, doing due diligence, meeting with the team, loving the team, falling in love, writing that check, and then all the constant, staying in touch and everything that you do after the fact. I mean, who has time for that? So,
yeah. Sorry, Mike. Just to sort of broaden the discussion a bit. So that was a very interesting sort of discussion around sort of equity crowdfunding. But I guess the making it a good user experience encapsulates all of the models. So I'd be interested to hear from the crowdfunding platforms how they guarantee a good user experience, because everyone's not a nice guy like Jay at the end there. How do you know that someone's going to say they're going to do a charitable event and then disappear or do a very scaled down version of what people are thinking of buying into? So I'd be interested to sort of hear your views on how you guarantee the experience of the contributor.
I can start. Like I said earlier, we do a long. We're less is more. We're not. I may be shooting myself in the face here, but we're not looking to have 25,000 projects on our website, because the projects come on, they stay on, and they actually stay on for 2 to 3 years, and because we're reporting revenue on their behalf to all the backers as well, so we're very careful about who we let on, and we probably have a 95% rejection rate. So, yeah. I mean, we treat our customers as the people who are buying in, not the actual project owners. That's maybe one way to define it.
Mm-hmm. Daryl, anything to add on that one? Because you probably have the same.
Well, actually, I'd say that we're probably at the other end of the Wild West, and that we have anyone can come to the platform, anyone can start a campaign. I'm not trying to judge or gatekeep whether or not their campaign will be interesting to their community. And we've had some stunning examples of where we would have been massively wrong if we'd said, don't do that one. And we have some really great examples of where we thought they would have raised a whole bunch more money and they didn't raise any. So we're putting some of that, we're trusting the crowd to help us determine the quality set on these campaigns. If someone doesn't do a good job of talking to the community, they don't raise much money. And it brings up the questions around fraud, about how do you prevent fraud, and we do a fair bit of work to analyze the campaigns that come through looking for fraud triggers. And I won't go into how, but there are some ways we can detect some of these that are a little unexpected. But if someone claims that they have a major illness and they've convinced all their close friends that they have this major illness, this is a real story, unfortunately, their friends might donate and give them a bunch of money for the cancer that person doesn't have. And there's not much we can do if they've convinced them one-on-one in person that they have cancer. So it's difficult to prevent in that case. So the user experiences make it as easy as possible, make it as transparent as possible, and let the community talk to each other so they will help enrich that experience.
Well, how many countries are you in?
18 different countries. We have campaigns running. Most of our campaigns are the United States. We have a small number here in Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and a smattering of Euro countries, Germany the next biggest.
For us, I mean, one of the benefits and I guess the beauty of crowdfunding, there's two-way directional conversation. And that makes it's really important for one reason why, well, from the event organizer standpoint, they get feedback from the people, giving them indications of what they want, information. So it gives a lot of power to the end user, to the attendees, how to shape the event a little bit. Traditionally, what ends up happening is you go from the round table and you go out and you hope that people are going to love it. Now it's going backwards. It's coming from outside, coming in, and then gives us direction, and then we can optimize to where you're going. The beauty of the success, I mean, that's the beauty in what helps success of crowdfunding and for ours is that if people don't buy, the event doesn't go on, right? So that's how we help them get that success.
For the last topics, I do want to hand over for some Q&A. Maybe spend a minute or so. Just what do you think? What are the sort of main changes you can see coming in crowdfunding? Like, where do you think this is going to be going in the next couple of years? We're really interested to hear what all of you think about that in a sort of a space of a 60 seconds or 90 seconds.
Keep it short. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Daryl.
So I think it's a wave of innovation. I think we're just hitting this Cambrian explosion of different kinds of models. I mean, Dave's model is not even listed in some of the technology stuff that's out there, and he's doing really, really well with it. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to come there. I think it's going to move, we think it's going to move into what we call crowdfunding as a service, where instead of becoming a portal that you go to, just like you used to have a shopping cart that you used to have to go to a website and then you do your business over there, and eventually that migrated to your website, crowdfunding will come to you and be part of your brand and the way you're promoting. So thinking of it a bit more of a social shopping cart. And the last place is that I think that we have to, for our donation side, we have to find ways to add value to the ecosystem where people are getting donor fatigue. And so how can we add enterprise money in that would help reach the community and support the projects in the community in a way that's beneficial to all parties? So we would call that enterprise cause marketing. If you think of it, we're disrupting an advertising model there to get more money into the causes that are going on, the projects in the community. So, Mike?
So equity crowdfunding is coming. As I mentioned, it's been here in BC. We just haven't used it. We haven't known about it. But it's there, and the U.S. is kind of setting the pace here. There are some risks, as we've talked about, because of the failure rates of startup companies. But fundamentally, it's going to get down to each and every one of us to be able to make that decision, informed or otherwise, speculative or otherwise. And we're already seeing various platforms on the equity side. There's a very successful one in Australia. I've spent some time with the folks down there, and they have a model that works very, very well for equity-based crowdfunding. But I can tell you, talking to the people that run the website, it's very expensive for them to do it. They're not making any money at it. They have to give a lot of, because of the regulations and the regulatory environment, they have to provide a lot of supervision, a lot of guidance, and frankly, it's a bit of a headache for them. And so it's going to be a while before we see any really, on-fire type equity-based crowdfunding websites. And I think we have to think about going back to basics. So for any of you who are raising money, start with the angel network, get angels to buy in, and then if you want to open the door to let others who are not accredited buy in, think about using that offering memorandum. And David, I might just take issue with something you said, because you mentioned lifestyle businesses using the offering memorandum. I certainly wouldn't advocate that. If you need a few $100,000 to start a restaurant, don't use an offering memorandum. It's just not worth the headache. But if you want to raise a few $1 million, that's where you use it. And you don't raise money by selling shares in $2,000 lots. You sell them in $10,000 and $20,000 and $30,000 lots. I think that's where there's a huge sweet spot of investors that we're not tapping into, and we've got to tap into those because they're chomping at the bit to get into all our exciting companies.
I think where I see it going, really in the next coming years, there's a number of equity sites that exist. One of them is a Dutch company called Symbid, S-Y-M-B-I-D, Symbid.com. They've built a model, what is known as a double flow through cooperative model, and it's sexy as hell. And we're looking at trying to see if we can do it in Canada. The other thing that I think is really, really hot is going to be the ability for the democratization around finance that will disrupt the social housing business and allow people to collectively buy into very expensive real estate and treat real estate as a liquid asset and trade in units and homes that can be provided for people in need. So I think that you're going to start to see collaboration between crowdfunding in the equity side that pays dividends but also provides a value service to the community.
I see that there's going to be some more wins. I think that the Obama campaign was one of the first one, and then Katrina was probably the second one, and that's really started taking off. I think when you start seeing, and then the Pebble Watch, when we start seeing a few of these wins, if there's a BC company that really wins and takes off, that's when other people start sniffing around and saying, oh, wow. I feel that the public, the mass populace are getting educated about this, and the more that they learn, the easier it is for platforms to do less education, and there's going to be more onboarding. From the reward side, I mean, the equity piece is its own beast. From the reward side, I'd love to see experiential funding in shorter time periods. I see a day where what we do is, even right now, is that you can go up on a screen and you can have crowdfunding within crowdfunding, so you can actually crowdfund at the event. Afterwards, if you want to meet one of us, you can say, boom, there's another opportunity and a call to action. So that timeline of, on average, it's 30 to 90 days. That's the timeline. Maybe we can take that down to half an hour and make it a lot more experiential. And I think that there's going to be shorter windows, which is really exciting because it's going to give so much more power to the people.
On the consumer products front, I think, if you're putting out anything, crowdfunding is going to become just a big staple in the quiver. You've got to engage with your consumer audience as quickly as you can, get feedback, learn, iterate in a minimum viable product kind of way. Long before your product is a minimum viable product, you can test just about everything. I mean, I don't know if it was Dropbox or Box.com, one of them. They tested if there was a model for their product just by producing a video, and found out that people wanted and they engaged with users or viewers of the video. Everything from big movies. I mean, famous directors have raised big budget movie budgets now on crowdfunding. They didn't need to, but they just did, so it was one way to do it, and they got their movie kicked off that way. To record albums, new products, books, just about everything is being crowdfunded. I don't think the success rates are going to necessarily change a lot, because at the end of the day, whatever you're producing, people have to love it. It's got to be a really great product, and that's never going to go away. But really getting into the stage of authentically engaging with people much sooner. Another really big trend is hardware. So hardware has always been so difficult from the upfront cash investment, and now you can 3D print something, put it out there, find out if people love it, and start to iterate at the low volumes level before you go too big and invest too much. So I think those are going to be crowdfunding will just be a real great way to get previously harder things to market and a lot faster.
Great. Well, we've got about seven minutes of Q&A, so I'm sure there's probably a lot of questions. Any questions? Lots, yeah.
A few.
There's some gentleman at the front here in the red sweater.
Just wanted to ask Dave if he would elaborate on the social housing. Sorry, I just wanted to ask Dave if he would elaborate on the social housing model of crowdfunding.
It's really just speculative. I've just started writing a little white paper on an idea, but I thought if you look at Vancouver and you look at an engineer coming out of Waterloo University and he's given an opportunity to work for a company in either Vancouver or Cleveland, Ohio, his first priority is going to be to pay down his student loan, and so he's going to go to the community where he can do that the easiest. And I thought it'd be interesting where a crowd could collectively buy a home and bring him to town and put him in that home, and then he pays a mortgage, but that's a dividend that is then, and he earns his equity into the home over time, which frees up his ability to pay down his student loan quicker and cement his place in the community, which is very, very important to long-term growth of communities, is having really great people.
So effectively the idea is to use the crowd to make the down payment.
Make the down payment, and then make those units that the crowd buys liquid, so if they want to exit, they can trade them on a market index based on how the housing market is doing.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's a cool idea.
That's super cool.
Who wants to do that with me?
That's an awesome idea.
So we're using references to the crowd as if we know who that is or that is everyone. And I have trouble believing that's true. What do we know about who is involved in this kind of investment? Indiegogo or Kickstarter, for example, as opposed to the classic angel. Who is it in the world out on the internet who is interested in putting money down on something that they're not going to see, possibly for months, on a whim, or at least some interest? Is this the average person, or is there a way of characterizing this, the crowd?
They're bleeding edge early adopters. So if you're talking about products, technologies, new gizmos, gadgets, I mean, everybody with a propeller on their cap. And then, honestly, that's a whole lot of people now. I mean, technology is the new mainstream. And so down at the very bottom of that bell curve of adoption, you've got literally millions of people worldwide who, and I'll definitely categorize myself in one of them, and just to describe that demographic for you, typically people under the age of 40, but not necessarily, and people who pride themselves on knowing what's next and want to be seen by their community, their social community, by knowing what's next. So, I bought an internet-connected watch. It connects to my phone so I can read my text messages and Twitter and all that, because I pride myself on being on the cutting edge of technology. So I want to get a watch before others do, 6 months, a year before others do, and talk about it. And I've talked about it. I'm talking about it to hundreds of people right now. I talk about it all the time, even though, quite frankly, I don't really like it. I still talk about it. And so I'm one of those bleeding edge early adopters who needs to be seen trying what's next. I had an MP3 player in 1998 by a company called Rio. It was 32 megabytes. It held 8 songs. I skipped the CD player altogether. I went from tapes to MP3 player in 98. And it sucked. What a piece of garbage. And then I had the Nomad jukebox and something else, I can't remember the brand name. I went through all the MP3 players long before there was a whisper of the iPod, and they were all crap. But I kept buying them. I paid $700 for my Palm Life Drive. It was obsolete in 6 months because I'm obsessed with knowing what's coming next and playing with it and tinkering it and learning from it, even though I know more than half the time it fails. I've backed about 12 projects on Indiegogo and Kickstarter.
I'm going to actually do a panel thing and challenge you on that a little bit. And the thing is, the community around the watch, I think the early adopters were the first to get into that. But the social proof of it taking off was what let the early majority join in earlier on.
If you could survey them, that is such a great point. I mean, maybe there were, they say if you're going to launch a product on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, you absolutely have to have your first 1,000 units pre-sold before you launch with friends and family and what they call your Facebook community. If you don't hit that 1,000 unit mark in like 24 hours, you're never going to take off. So those maybe are the really bleeding edge, and then you get to the early adopters, and then you get to the early majority, because you start to get this snowball effect on the internet, and that's virality. And you can't count on virality, but you have to do everything in your means to plan for it.
Yeah. Just the social proof aspect of some of these projects will help others that are interested. If I know Jay likes cool stuff, I might watch when he buys it because we're friends on Facebook, and I'll know about it, and I might go along too as an early follower. So there's different. It would be great numbers for them to try and figure out on some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We'll keep attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is on the equity side or on an investment side, it'll be a similar thing. If you feel like there's social buzz around the product, you might hate the product and buy the company because that's more interesting to you from an investment point of view. If you think about $2,000 investments, these are just really expensive lottery tickets. We buy lottery tickets on big houses at the fairs and things like that. This is just a much bigger one.
Mm-hmm.
You buy enough of them, you might score because you're not into one deal, you're into a bunch of deals.
And the funny thing is our government encourages us to buy lottery tickets, but they don't encourage us to invest in a startup. Go figure.
That's funny.
You're guaranteed to lose your money in the lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So my question to Mike, what's the reporting? So yes, you have to do an audited statement to make the member off random. What do you have to do every year? Do you have to?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
So it's just one-time audited statements,
That's it. Simple as that. The only thing you have to do is if you raise money again, you just tell them, you tell the regulator that you've done that. And a lot of people, there's no penalty if you forget or you're late.
So there's no requirement to advise their shareholders of what you're doing?
Nope. It's much weaker here than, say, in some of these areas like Australia where we think they have crowdfunding, which they really don't. They do have reporting requirements. We don't. We don't have the reporting requirements. It's only what you tell your shareholders you're going to do for them. That's it.
Okay, there's a question at the gallery, I think, up there.
Thanks. Thanks, by the way, for holding this event. It's a huge contribution. My name is George Hoffman. I'm with Network Immunology. We're a new medicine discovery company based here in Vancouver. We've been developing an HIV vaccine, preventive HIV vaccine, for the last 5 years. And we've got now very strong data in primates demonstrating the efficacy of our core component, the 1F7 molecule. We've induced an anti-HIV response to 3 forms of HIV in primates. And we're looking to raise $400,000 to take the HIV vaccine to the next level. We've got a study that's designed to do something that's never been done before, which is induce a broad response to HIV. We expect that we'd be able to, with this next study, to be able to attract worldwide attention from, we have connections with WHO, et cetera, but we do need to conduct this next study. So my question for all of you is...
That was a good lightning pitch, by the way. 100 seconds.
Sure. Thank you. So my question for all of you guys is, is crowdfunding a great way to do this? Would you recommend this?
No, just come to the Angel group. If you can't raise 400,000 from angels, why screw around with the crowd?
Especially the pitch that good.
Well, no, it's a very good point, though. This is one of the more difficult areas of medical research because of all the rules and laws around it. We have a project going on ours right now called American Gut. And believe it or not, what they do is they do microbiome analysis of your stomach content. And what they've done is they've ended up creating it as a massive way of getting the data that they want by getting a participatory crowd going and buying their kits and telling their friends to get the results of this test. There's possibly an angle that you could go on there around the number of people that are affected by HIV and people who would be willing to contribute for others to know that this was going on. But it's the long tail. It's really out there about how far down the line you could get something like this to work. If you could tell the story, you might get it to work, but it's daunting.
I don't know. I'd say, all the breast cancer bracelets and all these kinds of ways of people socially telling their community that they stand for a good cause. I mean, I have friends who are fighting HIV, and I would back a project like that in a heartbeat, just to get to wear a reward that costs you $2 that I could wear on my finger or wrist, so people know that I care about the subject and that I'm going to put my money down on something, especially if you did a local one, even just a test bed local one. Say, you want to raise 10 grand and put it on Indiegogo or one of the local sites.
Can I add on to that?
I think you should totally do a crowdfunding campaign. Test local and then go big if it works. But have a gift. My $100 is worth this bracelet that I get to let people know I'm backing a good cause. And every time I wear it, I get to tell or show it. Someone asks what that is, I get to tell them to go to this website and do the same.
Great feedback. Thank you.
I want to add one more thing to that. I'm not sure if I would. We raise money. We're actually in a raise. We're raising $750, and we're about 600 there. And we didn't crowdfund our fundraising. Our team's originally from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan. Our whole team, but then we spent the majority of the year in San Francisco, went through an accelerator in Toronto, and then just came from Manhattan. And the reason why we went with an angel route is we were selective with our angels. We wanted to make sure that we got in with people that knew our space. We know that raising angel funds, and all of our mentors and our advisors that came on with the money that we raised, we know that the next step on our Series A, they're gateways. They're going to help us. So maybe doing $1 million raise or $750, we can do that on a small run. But our $10 million or $50 million checks, in order to go for our subsequent rounds, in the tech world, anyways, we want to make sure that we have those people that have those pipelines to those funds. I would maybe encourage you to find people who are in your space and talk to them. I mean, if they really have your back, what we've found is people in our space, the super angels that are in our space, they've just opened up doors. And they've brought in other people to the point where we've actually said no to some money because you're looking for smart money, is whatever that means, but that can help you get to the next level. So
yeah, I wouldn't say it's an either-or conversation at all.
No,
you definitely want to go to angels, and you definitely want to engage communities.
Yeah,
being on crowdfunding is not about the money. It's about building up that evangelist base, a community that you can authentically have relationships with and learn
Depends
from.
on how much I would say depending on how much you're going to raise. I mean, if you're going to look for multiple funding raises to go on, it just depends on where you are. So it's come talk to us
But
later.
the advantage of the crowdfunding is that it's non-dilutive in that aspect.
Which
And
angels
on
love.
Jay's idea, if Jay's that passionate about helping his friends, the bracelet's one idea. Early access to the resulting drug to his friends would be a huge perk, which would drive somebody.
Wow.
So you, I
That's
mean,
a-
my donation,
Yeah.
I get a get-out-of-jail-free card for one of my friends to get into the early human trial on that program. That would be an interesting perk.
Yeah, huge emotional component to that sort of thing. A hell of a good idea.
Okay, I think we've got time for one more question. Someone at the front, you've had your hand up all the time. Thanks. Yeah, just here.
Thanks. With a financial statement that will be developing its all zeros, how can we ask someone to be an equity shareholder with us for maybe like we evaluated for $1 million, but it shows zeros?
That's where you're starting. You're starting with nothing. All you have to do is get someone to certify that you've got nothing. That's what you call an audit. Yes, you have
As an
nothing.
auditor, I can certify that as well.
Yeah, perfect. Because
That's it.
Okay.
I'm not kidding.
But the deeper part of your question is how you're going to justify your $1 million valuation on your idea. And beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If your story is a good one, you're selling the future potential of that business, not the current value.
So it's not the intangible asset that I would be including.
In your offering memorandum, you're going to describe your business. You're going to talk about how you're going to make money. You're also going to have a share price, and you're going to have to justify that share price using some logic. So that's all in there, but none of that has to be audited. It's only the existing starting financial statement that needs to be audited. So it's not hard.
Sure. Okay, one more. There's a gentleman at the front here in the jacket.
This question's for Mike. Talking about the OM. Could you tell us maybe what some typical uses would be? You were talking about if you're raising a small amount of money, you might go through angels. But could you talk about the difference? Why would I use an OM versus going to angels?
You would use the OM if you've got investors lined up who don't meet the qualifications.
They're not accredited.
They're not accredited, or they're not family, friends, and relatives, people you've known for at least 2 years. So if you have people lined up that want to invest, and I wouldn't say, a few $100s or a few thousand, but, serious money, 5,000 at least, maybe 10, 15,000. If you want to sell to those people, then you can do that legally with an offering memorandum. That's where it comes in. It's also useful if you have angels, for example, and you've raised 300 or 400 from them, and then you want to get some micro angels or cherubs or others into the act, then that's how you can do it.
Do you want to talk about the stacking of the exemptions?
Yeah, it's a very good point. You can use any of these exemptions in combination. So, for example, you can raise money from accredited investors without the offering memorandum. Then if you have people come to you and say, well, we'd also like to invest, then you could do the offering memorandum if you wanted to. And these things aren't mutually exclusive, so you can use any combination of family, friends, relatives, business associates, the minimum $150,000 investment, the offering memorandum, the accredited, use them all in combination. It'll be driven really by who wants to invest and who you are selling to.
Okay, thanks.
I'd like to invite Tim back up to the podium. Thanks, Tim.
Made a small mistake there. Yeah, you can thank the panel as well. So on behalf of Richard, thank you very much. He just asked me, are you going to do this or am I going to do this? And I just went, I'll do it. But anyways, this was a great panel. I was watching the Q&A, and I didn't see anybody dozing off. Everybody's on the edge of the seat waiting for the next question. And thank you for the lightning pitch up there. This is about doing business. And I don't mind at Q&A if you've got something you want to say, that you want to try and promote something. The response you got here is a validation that it's a good idea. It's a good thing to do. And thanks for stepping up. And you have permission to use one of these sponsor tables right up at the front. Go sit on it and tell people that you're selling your HIV vaccine, whatever it is you want. and just let people know who you are, because a lot of people can't see, and nobody in the lobby can see who you are. So make sure you get yourself out there. So this is the guy with the maroon hoodie. Kind of looks like he's going to start the next Facebook. You'll get the joke when you see him. All right. Thank you very much for everybody for coming out. Just a few quick things. Richard, again, this is a terrific panel, and there were some really interesting things about the panel that are in the bios that we didn't get to cover. For example, we have a former professional snowboarder, world traveler, mustard maker, not a vegan. And I think I want to get a T-shirt for Mike Volker that says, "Ask me about OM." This has just been fascinating, and I think I need to go to our executive director and talk about crowdsourcing the whole set of tickets for next year's season of VEF. I think this show shows that we've got some really good value here. So. I'm sorry, quickly, got to go through some quick ones. I'm standing between you and alcohol, so that's important. I realize that. I'd like to take a quick mention of Arnold Leung, who's on our board, and also the CEO of Appnovation. Appnovation has been helping us on a volunteer basis to support our website. They're doing a terrific job, and this is a terrific company. I really recommend you get involved if you have anything you need to do on the web and building something up, applications, e-commerce. This is a great group to get in touch with. We'd also like to thank the NCFA, the National Crowdfunding Association of Canada, for the promotion of this week's event. And yes, there was one more thing I wanted to put on here. I also wanted to say thanks to Daryl for coining the new acronym, which is going to take over the world, and that is CFAAS. CFAS is going to be crowdfunding as a service. Watch for that one to come up. So thanks everybody for attending. And one small request: forgive us tonight because we had a very big surge in last-minute sign up. So next time, if you sign up quickly and early, there'll be enough finger food up there for everybody. Today we're a little bit short because we weren't expecting quite the sellout we had, so forgive us for that. And thank you very much for coming. Really enjoyed the show.